Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We're here today to talk about Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. What Jorg Newman, the head of Microsoft Flight Simulator, says is the biggest undertaking ever in flight simulation. We're going to talk about a few things that they've released, some details they've released about Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 that nobody else has really seemed to pick up on. And the other thing we're going to talk about is a relatively specific window for a release date, which I haven't heard anybody else really pick up on either. So we'll go through some of the details about the new sim, what they've said about it, and what we can expect and when we can expect it. So please stick around. So we mentioned that Jorg said that this is going to be the biggest undertaking ever in flight simulation. They have 500 people working on this in Microsoft, and he said, and I quote, "We are butting up on what we can do with the sim that we have." So they have basically three main focuses going forward in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. The first of those is aviation activities. That's kind of the career mode where you have things like aerial firefighting, air ambulance, um, helicopter cargo transport, mountain rescue, that sort of thing. And we know that's a career mode. It's a progressive career mode. And it's interesting because they said that number one, Jorg said this is not a game, so you don't expect it to be gamey. It's going to be a progressive aviation career focused activity, and they've worked with organizations that actually do these things. So they've gone out to organizations that actually perform these roles and discussed with them how to best set this process up or set this whole thing up. Now, the second focus that they have in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 is making the client thinner, uh, making the architecture of the sim lighter and making it a lot easier and faster for us to update and to use. So they've completely redone the architecture of the sim. All the terrain data is going to be on the cloud, and all we are going to download is what we need. World updates are a good example. We're not going to be downloading all the world updates. I don't know how many there are right now. 16. I have flown in probably 3 of the regions, and Sebastian from Asobo said that the sim is going to look at what you really need and only download that, which is fantastic. They've changed the texture system so that only the bitmap level that you need is going to be downloaded. So they have the textures up to 8K. But if you don't need an 8K texture for what you're doing or for your system, for your performance, it's not going to download it. It's going to download the bitmap level that you need. So this is going to all create a smaller hard drive footprint on our PCs. It's going to make loading the sim faster. It's going to make updating the sim faster. Marketplace downloads are going to be faster. And what it's really going to do is help keep the minimum specs for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 low. So the next thing we want to talk about is performance. Now, performance is obviously a huge question that everybody has, and everybody wants to know, are we going to get better multi-threading? Are we going to get better performance in the sim? And the answer is yes. And there are three things specifically that Asobo has talked about that are going to be moved from the main core, the so-called main thread that we're limited by in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, to other cores that will free up performance on the main core to make the sim run more efficiently. Number one is the physics engine. Number two is the aerodynamics engine, and number three is the flight model. So all three of those things, which are major components of the simulator, are going to be run on different cores than the sim itself is going to be run on. Now, the physics and aerodynamics engines have both been completely rewritten, as has the flight model, and we'll talk about that in a moment. To give number one, give more control to aircraft developers. Asobo is going to be making templates for different types of aircraft: single engine, multi-engine, small aircraft, large aircraft, different types of fuselages that developers can use to develop their aircraft. Now, they have also rewritten the physics and aerodynamics so that it includes soft bodies, things like rope, balloons, parachutes, things like that. Um, and they're going to be completely overhauling systems like the electrical system, the pneumatic, fuel, hydraulic systems. There's going to be failure and wear and tear. We're going to have new payload and passenger features. The avionics are going to be deeper and more broad and more in depth, which is really pretty impressive considering what we have right now in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. And there's going to be a default computer tablet in every aircraft. The next thing they talked about is a digital twin. Now, one of the things I noticed recently on a flight in Africa is that the terrain was lacking. And it's known to be that way in many parts of the world, including South America, that it just doesn't have the same detail that Europe and North America has. Well, the issue is they can't get photogrammetry everywhere. The way they actually do the photogrammetry is by having an airplane fly overhead of the terrain with $1 million camera and take these images that Asobo then uses in the sim. Well, not all governments will allow them to do that, right? And so what Asobo has done is they've actually created something. They've invented a new technique, and which they call 3D out of 2D. And what it does is it allows them to take satellite imagery and get the detail that they need from satellite imagery rather than just photogrammetry. And it's using something called TIN, which is Triangulated Irregular Network. Now, this is a model that was developed in the 70s as a way to build surfaces from a set of irregularly spaced points. And what that means is it's um, basically how computer aided design creates flowing uh, terrain out of just a specific number of data points. Photogrammetry is basically the method of data capture that they've been using for high fidelity scenery, but now they're going to be able to do that using tin. They gave an example of this in one of the dev streams, and this is what they're talking about. So this is an area in southern France. So what they do is they capture the data using tin, and you can see the original on the top. And then what they do is they use AI, they use machine learning to detect where the bushes and trees are, and you can see they're just flat pasted on top of the surface, and then those trees are replaced by Asobo trees, which are 3D. They're going to be 3D in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. They're 2D in 2020. In Flight Sim 24, they're going to be 3D. Then they're going to add rocks, things like small details from the detailed maps of the surface. And then what we're going to get is what you can see at the bottom, which is a much more lifelike and defined image. So where this whole thing becomes impressive is when you consider the fact that currently photogrammetry in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 is approximately 40 centimeters resolution. In Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, they're going to be able to produce 50 centimeter resolution everywhere, which means that places right now that basically have no decent Bing maps, no photogrammetry at all, are going to be almost as good in Microsoft 2024, Flight Simulator 2024, as the photogrammetry is in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. The next thing they talked about is they've divided the world into 3 areas: static, dynamic, and living. Here we're looking at static, the static world. And what they're doing in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, they're going to improve the ground details, including 3D tessellation of ground details. You can see in the photograph on the upper right how the grooves have depth to them, and the way the snow is kind of moved around and pushed around by the tires has depth and character to it. They're also going to have enhanced tree diversity, like we were talking about before. Instead of just having the 2D trees that they have currently, they're going to be 3D trees. They're no longer going to be too tall. They're going to be accurate for the location, for the size, and improved cliffs using the tin feature that we were talking about earlier. Next is the dynamic world. They're going to have full seasons. They're going to have things like atmospheric abnormalities like the aurora borealis. They're going to have tornadoes, supercells, big storms, and then one of the things that I think is really pretty amazing, the living world, animal herds and migration, which is really pretty unbelievable. Worldwide live ship traffic, accurate live air traffic, including as many liveries as they can get. They're really working on trying to get as many liveries into the sim as they can, and also improved vehicle traffic. Right now, before Sim Update 15, the ground physics, the ground contact model is the same way as it was in FSX. FSX only had flat terrain. You'll remember there weren't any undulating runways and taxiways in FSX, which Flight Sim 2024 is, or 2020 rather, is based on FSX code. And so what they've done for Flight Sim 2024, they've added more parameters to the suspension, new flexibility to the airframe. The airframe can now twist and bend, has elasticity to it. And the new tire model, which is the softer tires that also have some give. They have some, a tire when it goes around the corner will have some lean to it, that sort of thing. And so that's been redone for Flight Sim 2024, and that is going to be as much as it can kind of backfed into Flight Sim 2020. So the updates that we're going to see in Flight Sim 2020 for Sim Update 15 are not going to be the equivalent of the ground contact and the ground physics that we're going to see in Flight Sim 24, but it is going to be a lot better. So now we've talked about the features of Flight Sim 2024. When can we expect to see it? Now, nobody seems to have any idea except me. In the March 2024 developer stream, one of the things they were talking about was that they're going to be partnering with really quality add-on developers to bring payware quality aircraft as standard in the sim. When Jorg was talking about Flight FX and the update to the Vision Jet that they're going to be doing as a part of the base sim for Flight Sim 2024, he said something very, very interesting. He was talking about the possibility of eventually pulling the current Vision Jet from the marketplace and whether it would make sense to do that and at what time would they do that if they were going to. The thinking being that, of course, the airplane is going to be included in the base of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. So they wouldn't want somebody to buy it, let's say, a month, 2 months, whatever, prior to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 being released. So what kind of a time frame was he thinking about? Well, he gave a specific quote on that subject, and what he said was, and I quote, "I'm a little worried that people buy this in September, and right after that comes Flight Sim 2024. Now, prior to him making that comment, he wasn't talking in any way about dates, about months, about predictions about when it would come out. So I think that was a little bit of a slip of the tongue on the part of Mr. Neumann. And my prediction is that Flight Sim 2024 is going to come out in October. That is what the quote says to me. So hopefully you've gotten a little bit more in-depth look at Flight Sim 2024 in this video, and a rather specific window in which this will likely be released. I'm going to start paying a whole lot more attention to Flight Sim 2024 now. One of the things that I had believed prior to doing the research for this video was that it was going to be a complete it was going to be a complete from the ground up, brand new simulator. It's not going to be that. But it is going to be a major, major revision, major, major update, and it does warrant a new release, in my opinion. And I am going to be one of the first people there with my handy dandy credit card ready to buy it when it comes out. So I hope this was helpful to you guys. And as always, any questions and comments, please put them in the comment section for the video. And I hope you guys are doing well.